Hello, NBA fans, and welcome to another episode of the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also, hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me today, Kory, Waldron, Jack Manuell. What's poppin', fellas?
Basketball season's heating up, fellas.
No, I was feeling pretty drowsy, and all I needed was a shot of the OTG podcast to wake me up.
OTG pod to wake you up. We're here Sunday morning, but Jack said the season's heating up, and one team that is heating up is the Boston Celtics. 15 straight wins. They started 0-2, won their next 15. Just been dominating. They've been gritting out these wins. They had a big win against Golden State on Thursday night. What are your initial thoughts about this Boston winning streak, and how surprised are you about it?
Surprised, yes, but at the same time, this is a team that we thought, even with Gordon Hayward, probably would have been around the top echelon of the Eastern Conference anyway. But Brad Stevens he's coaching his ass off. He's turned so many things that were weaknesses into strengths this year. Last year, they were one of the worst rebounding teams. Now they were their second best in the league. He's getting quality production from guys that are 9th, 10th, and 11th deep. Guys like Thies, Ojale, and shout out to our boy Shane Larkin, Nick. I actually like Shane Larkin. I was surprised at the Nets got rid of him. We could probably use him right now with our injury crisis with all our guards, but that's for another day. Kyrie's playing defense. Jaylen Brown's playing inspired basketball. Jason Tatum, everyone's saying he should have been the number one pick. And they've got the best, everyone knows this, they've got the best defensive rating in the league. And 5 of their players are in the top 10. So there's a number of factors, but they're the real deal.
Almost everything you just said, I agree with wholeheartedly. They've been extremely good on the defensive end. I saw the stat this morning when I was doing my research. These are the 5 worst teams in field goal percentage in the league, right? You got the Brooklyn Nets at 26, and then at 30, 29, 28, you have the Kings, Mavericks, and Bulls, and at 27 is the Boston Celtics at 42.9. So they're in the bottom 5 of field goal percentage, and this team is still on a 15-game winning streak. They're beating teams like the Warriors. I mean, that's incredible to me, just seeing how bad this team has been shooting. Because Kyrie, for what it's worth, hasn't been that offensive barrage that we've seen. Yes, he's had the nose fracture, whatever he has. So that definitely plays a part into it this recent stretch. But, I mean, they just play great team basketball. Brad Stevens, hat off to him. He continues to do, the impossible. After Gordon Hayward went down, as you always talk about, a lot of people thought this team was done, and they've completely flipped the script, and they've won, 15 straight. It's really incredible.
Yeah, like you said, it's incredible, and they're getting, contributions from all over the board. Like you said, Jack, Brad Stevens doing a great job. Kyrie, his numbers aren't necessarily up, but like you mentioned, the defense has picked up. And one thing I think he's done a better job of is kind of getting the offense rolling. Like in Cleveland, it was more about ISO, but I feel like Kyrie is more about the team now in Boston, making sure everything's set up. Also, a shout out to Al Horford. He's been playing great. I think a lot of people don't understand is what they do defensively. A lot of that is allowed by having the versatility of an Al Horford. He's teed up a ton of different star players in this league, and he's done a great job. And like Jack said, they have an array of guys in the top 10 in defensive rating. But how good can this team be? Obviously we mentioned they lost Gordon Hayward the first game of the season, and we expected them to be a top team in the East. Now it looks like they probably will anyways. But, what's the best-case scenario for this team moving forward for the rest of the season? Are they going to be able to stay at this type of level, or they're going to eventually cool down?
Look, guys are going to have injuries, Nick. There's going to be up and down form. And, you'd rather be peaking, in April rather than in November. But this sustained form has shown how good this Boston team can be. The best-case scenario is they're going to make the finals. That's their best-case scenario. Their best-case scenario is they can win the championship. They've beaten the Golden State Warriors. Now, those are lofty expectations, and I'm sure we all don't think that Golden State are playing their best basketball right now. But, they're certainly in with a shot, and there could be an appearance of Gordon Hayward if they somehow make the finals and they get rid of the Cavaliers or the Washington Wizards or whatever. Then I wouldn't be surprised if Gordon Hayward wants to suit up and come back and help his team. Because even 15 minutes of Gordon Hayward would probably be better than 15 minutes of Shane Larkin. No offense to Shane Larkin. But Gordon Hayward could make an appearance. As much as they're saying they're shutting it down, in a similar way, there was talk I remember in Chicago a few years ago when Derrick Rose had that one of his umpteenth knee injuries. They were saying he could have been back in the playoffs, but he chose not to. I reckon that's the same thing that's probably happening right now with Gordon Hayward, but the communication by the Wizards front office and their communications guys, not Wizards, sorry, Celtics, is much better, and I think that's leaving the door slightly ajar for Mr. Hayward.
Yeah, I actually thought about this last week, Jack. If the Celtics are, in the semifinals, getting ready to make a push for like the conference finals, maybe even the finals, and Hayward, doing drills and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him play like a bench role of like 15 to 20 minutes a game. I'm not sure I would want that, only because when Paul George did that a couple of years ago for the Pacers, I know he played like the last 6 games of the season, and you can just tell the confidence is going to be the biggest thing for a guy like that, is being able to trust yourself to make certain moves and be able to, like, say, go up for an alley-oop or go to the hoop hard. That would be my only concern about bringing him back, like for like games that mean so much, is how much confidence he can possibly have in himself. But you're dead on with the expectations. At this point, it's finals or bust when you're at this point in the conference. The good thing about the Celtics so far is they've taken care of every game they're supposed to win. Games on the schedule for these big teams that you say they should win this game 10 out of 10 times. We saw the Cavs lose to Atlanta. The Celtics were down by 16 to Atlanta, and they managed to come back and actually win that game, which is the game you're supposed to win. They have the Dallas Mavericks up next. So the schedule for them after the Warriors is relatively easy. So they could get a nice big cushion here to kind of pad this lead in the East.
Yeah, they're already starting to get that nice cushion. I think they already have about 5.5 games up on the Cavs. Obviously, the Cavs aren't high in the standings, but that's your main opponent for that number 1 seed. But I think one thing that's really impressive is the fact that we've mentioned it is they're not winning games offensively. It's with their defense. They're shooting a low percentage. So when they start to heat it up, because they do have some good offensive players, they're going to still win games. How much of a chance do you give this team against Cleveland? Obviously, Cleveland's struggling. They're not healthy, but Boston has definitely surprised, and they've got contributions from a ton of young guys. Are you more confident in them now than you were before the season, or it's still around the same?
No, I'm definitely way more confident, Nick. They've far exceeded the expectations I had. I thought they were probably in the same bracket as the Wizards. For me, those were sort of the top 2 teams to challenge the Cavs, but they've sort of separated themselves now. Now, I know the Wizards are at about 9-5, 10-5, so they're doing okay themselves, but just the way that they've been playing, Brad Stevens, I think it was on First Take or one of those sports talk shows, was saying that he's the most valuable asset in the Eastern Conference right now, apart from LeBron James. It's an interesting conversation because I know a heap of other podcasts are saying, is it LeBron James and the Cavaliers or the field? Now, I'm still probably backing LeBron James, but that's only because right now it's November and we know what LeBron James can do in April to June. We've seen it. But we've also seen what Kyrie Irving can do in that time as well. He's one of the most clutch players around that time, and he's proven himself time and time again. So if we get a 7-game series against the Cavs, oh boy, that's going to be fun.
Not much still in a 7-game series, even though I love the fact that the Celtics actually play defense, because we live in a time of basketball where there is so very little defense. And almost every person on this Celtics team does play hard defense. We saw it disturb the Warriors. And I guess the Cavaliers, there's a lot of guys you can always slow down. LeBron James is the only guy you can't slow down. If LeBron James is not going to have a good night, it's pretty much either because he's being triple teamed or he's off. And both those things don't happen often. In a 7-game series, I still can't go against LeBron James, especially with how Cleveland has been playing as of late. They had a big comeback win against the Clippers the other night, and they've really been gaining some momentum. They finally won at home, too, which is really cool to see in that Clippers game. And LeBron's been balling out. And shout out to Dwayne Wade, who looks like he's actually playing somewhat relatively good old man basketball.
Yeah, they've starting to find Wade into a nice rhythm, especially that second unit and Kyle Korver. He's starting to pick it up. I know we were talking trash about him a few weeks ago, but it looks good for them. Obviously, the Cavs, the biggest issue for them is going to be, what does Isaiah Thomas bring to the table when he comes back? But talking about point guards, let's talk about a rookie point guard that obviously has been the talk of the NBA since probably last June, and that's Lonzo Ball. So Lonzo, obviously there was this incident with the Suns. We'll talk about that a little bit, but we're mostly going to talk about his struggles early on. But what were your thoughts on that against the Suns, where his teammates got into a little bit of brawl? Lonzo, instead of going over there, walks to the bench. What are your thoughts on this?
Look, he's seen as a leader of the team, and Nick, and we had a chat about this before this week's Brooklyn Buzz, and it didn't look good, but like the optics aren't necessarily everything. He said that he didn't want to go over there and get a tech. I don't really feel strongly either way about it. Like everyone's making this huge thing over, a storm in a teacup. A storm in a teacup. Now, and it's just because it's Lonzo. And funnily enough, just like looking just through like how Lonzo's been reported this year, this was actually literally an actual headline from ESPN. What I saw yesterday online: Lonzo Ball of Los Angeles Lakers says haircut not about shooting struggles. Like, come on, the criticism of this guy's game, of Lonzo's game, that's warranted. But all this bullshit about like his hair, about like walking over, is he gonna help his teammates? Like, come on, like give me a break. I don't hate probably Lonzo as much as Kory does, but like I still think the criticism about his game are warranted. Like that's fine, but this guy's 20 years old. Let's give him a bit of a break.
I don't know why every time Lonzo gets brought up, anyone who I'm talking with, Kory hates him. I don't hate him. I just don't. I don't see the superstar that everyone else sees. I have said this numerous times. I think he's going to be a phenomenal playmaker. I think he'll be a very good point guard in this league. I just don't see superstar, and I'm not sure if I see Hall of Famer yet.
What's his ceiling here? Kory, what do you think his ceiling is? Like, give me a player comparison. Is it everyone's saying Jason Kidd? Is it Jason Kidd, or is it more like a serviceable star?
I see him more like a Rondo.
Even that's pretty good.
A guy who can drive, a guy who can pass, a guy who, when he's wide open, can sometimes hit a shot. But that's kind of what I see, and not as good of a defender either. But at least Lonzo's actually really scrappy in the defensive end, for his credit.
And he's a great rebounder.
Yeah, he is. He's a very good rebounder. His size definitely plays a factor in that. He's still not even as strong as I think he can be. But back to the incident against Phoenix. It sucks that Magic Johnson traded away a guy who wasn't a leader for another guy who wasn't a leader. So it's really unfortunate. But I'm with you, Jack. I don't understand why we have to overanalyze everything this kid does. The haircut thing was ridiculous. Like, let the guy get a haircut. His hair looked like crap. Like he just was tired of having a crappy haircut. And then he walks away. I guess what looks really bad is the fact that he looked at his teammates scuffling and then just kept walking.
The way he walked away.
Right, but at the same time, like I'm pretty sure I've seen LeBron do that when he was in Miami. Like I've seen LeBron definitely look at people like pushing and just keep on walking at times. Because and Lonzo, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he runs into there and he starts pushing guys or trying to help his teammate, then they say, "Wow, look at this guy causing trouble," or whatever the storyline would be. And then if he doesn't, he's a bad teammate and a bad leader. I just think we need to lay off the kid a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't, like Jack said, I don't feel, strongly about either way. I think the best way to usually handle that incident, if you are the leader of the team, isn't necessarily to go over there and start shoving people or walk to the bench. You go over there and you try to get your teammates. You try to break it up. You don't have to push anybody. You just don't have to get involved, but you can at least walk over to the incident and try to break it up, especially because he is supposed to be the leader. But like I said, it's not a huge deal either way.
What I could see, though? I could see an issue, maybe, and I don't think anyone's really talking about it. If Lonzo walked over there, his concern may be because he has this giant target on his back.
That someone may
go after him. Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy to think that if Lonzo goes into a scuffle like that to try and break somebody up, that somebody who doesn't like LeVar, doesn't like Lonzo, goes at Lonzo just because it's Lonzo, not necessarily because he's doing anything.
It's a fair point, to be honest. Especially with all the hype and, especially some of the other younger player might think, I'm better than Lonzo Ball. Like, fuck this guy, and I'm trying to get the headline today.
Yeah, so it could just be him just trying to, avoid any kind of conflict whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, he is a pretty smart guy. So, I mean, I don't think Lonzo's stupid. He's just struggling right now. And let's talk about that. Like you guys said, let's focus on the basketball side. Obviously, there's just been so much hype, so it puts a lot of pressure on him. His stats right now, 8.8 points a game, 6.8 assists, 6.6 rebounds, 1.6 steals, 2.7 turnovers, 30% from the field, and 27% from three. What are your thoughts on those numbers?
There's a couple of good ones in there, Nick. So, like as Kory and I mentioned, rebounding, pretty good. Those steals numbers, pretty good. Those assist numbers, quite good. You know, they're not. He's going to get compared to Ben Simmons probably for the rest of his career right now. But you know, he's an otherworldly player, and he's going to be an all-star this year. I'd be surprised if he's not. And shout out to, he's like literally 5 minutes away. He used to play 5 minutes away from where I live. So shout out back to Melbourne, Altona. The negatives there are the 30.8% shooting from the field and the 22.7% shooting from three. Another little tidbit that I saw as well, he's only averaging 1.6 free throws a game, and he's making 50% of them. So he's not even getting easy buckets. Like you said there, Nick, his scoring numbers are quite bad, but you know, his handle doesn't look great. So that's obviously why off the dribble he's not a great scorer. He doesn't obviously have a pull-up three. But then again, neither does really, like, D'Lo is starting to develop that, the guy he's going to get compared to as well. But in all of the positives and negatives, I saw when I was just like looking around on Twitter, I saw one of the most savage takes ever. He's like, he's a better rapper right now than he is a basketball player, which is pretty bad because like he's a shit rapper. Like Damian Lillard has it for breakfast, so his form must be really trash if they think he's a better rapper than he is a basketball player.
I mean, it's funny because like if you look at like his stat lines, like they're not like the worst stat lines. Like the other night against Phoenix, he had 6 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, and 1 block. You know, yes, it's not like anything in there special because he's not, you know, dropping 15 points and he's not grabbing, you know, a double-double or a triple-double, which in this day and age is like the holy grail. But, you know, the shot's just bad. There's no confidence when he's shooting a jump shot in the NBA game. I can't remember who it was against, but it was recently. He got, you know, like 2 wide open threes in like the same type of possession, and he missed both wide open threes. And I just think at this point in time, it definitely is a mental thing. His shot right now is probably worse than it is because he's doubting himself. I'm sure being him, it's very hard to not hear everything the media is saying. You know, the constant questions. For example, Jack, like you mentioned with the haircut. People are trying to link his bad shooting to him getting a haircut. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, let's just relax a tad.
Yeah, I think the shooting is, you know, not only is it, you know, mechanics, but like you said, mentally too. The shot is ugly. I think he might have to change his jump shot. I think it would benefit him to get it done with now and start trying to make the change to something more, you know, more normal. But as of right now, I think that jump shot is affecting his game in the sense that it's just hard to make shots when you shoot like that.
I think Magic has come out and said that they're going to let him have a year. I'm not sure if Coach Waldron has.
Yeah, I read this too.
But yeah, Magic said like they're going to give him a year and see how it goes. But yeah, the mechanics aren't great. But like you said, I mean, he might have, like Aaron Gordon right now is the guy that's fixed his mechanics. It's not to say that it's broken, but it certainly needs mending.
No, that's broken.
Well, I'm gonna say for a 20-year-old, like LeBron came into the league and he wasn't like a knockdown 3-point shooter like he is now. It won 15 games into a season. I'm gonna give him a little bit of credit, but Lonzo's struggling.
The only difference between him and LeBron is LeBron wasn't supposed to be a 3-point shooter going into the league. As for Lonzo, the only thing he really had was the playmaking, rebounding, and the 3-point shooting. That's the only thing, was that Lonzo's game was, you know, based on his ability to be able to drive, hit the three, and then dish.
One thing I think about Lonzo as well is that everyone's calling him like he looks timid and stuff out there, and there's reasons to suggest that with just his demeanor and how he plays. I can't remember who it was that said, but I really resonated with it. The fact that at practice, Coach Walton just needs to get like KCP on him and start like absolutely playing hounding defense on him, like Pat Beverly did to him in the first game, because he looks like he doesn't want to be embarrassed out there. Like he doesn't want to, you know, shoot an air ball. Like he doesn't want to get stripped by whoever he's defending. Like he doesn't want to make a bad pass or turn it over. But those mistakes are part of basketball. Like if you look at, say, Nick and I were probably watching the Utah Jazz game the other night, and Donovan Mitchell made some mistakes. but the kid just keeps on going, keeps on. Quinn Snyder, obviously with the injuries they're having, he just lets him have those reps. Dennis Smith the same, De'Aaron Fox the same. He needs to learn just to keep making those mistakes. And I mean, it doesn't help as well that Coach Walton is benching him in the last quarter, when he probably should just leave him out there, because the Lakers aren't there to make the playoffs this year, though they are going better than their crosstown rivals, which is hugely surprising. But I think he's the part of the reason is that demeanor is that he just needs to make mistakes on the court and off the court in practice.
Yeah, and I think some of that it comes with the outside pressure. Like, he's never going to admit it, but obviously there's been a ton of pressure on him. And remember, he's only a 20-year-old kid. And everybody's like, oh, this is the Lakers franchise. He has the keys to the team. And it's a tough situation. I think Kory brought up a great point earlier. Being only 20 years old, he's going to get bigger. He might get a little bit more athletic, and I think that'll help his game. Just right now, it's just a lot on his plate. It doesn't help that Jordan Clarkson's playing well, too.
He's getting those girls.
Jordan Clarkson's playing well. Kuzma playing well. Ingram's playing well.
You think Kuzma playing so well hurts him, Kory? Like, because obviously Kuzma was the late pick.
I was about to say that. I was about to ask the same question. I was just thinking here, wondering how much that affects his psyche. That, a guy drafted 27th in the first round. If Ben Simmons wasn't in this Rookie of the Year campaign, then Kuzma probably right now would be the front runner for Rookie of the Year.
I'll have Tatum.
Okay. Tatum and Kuzma though would be leading the way, which would be perfect. The Celtics, Lakers, rookies battling for Rookie of the Year. But it might affect a little bit, only because Kuzma gets all those storyline headlines just as well, and he's not having any struggles. So the media absolutely loves him. They don't give him any kind of hardship. Kuzma has path right now, because even if he does average, it's still better than expected.
Yeah, and I think as well, we saw what happened in Summer League with the partnership that they got, and Lonzo was MVP of Summer League. Kyle Kuzma was the unsung hero, whereas Kuzma's continued that form. Lonzo's had a big drop off, so I think that hasn't helped certainly. But I think it bodes well for the future, and it's going to only help Lonzo that he's got a great teammate, because you look at the young duos now like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Having another good player beside you isn't a bad thing. It does hurt the hype and the negativity on Lonzo, but obviously Kyle Kuzma doesn't have a loud ass dad who's trying to create his own franchise and own business. So it certainly works a lot easier for him. But I don't think it's necessarily a negative.
But moving on from Lonzo, obviously, like I said, he's a young kid. He's got plenty of time this season, plenty of time for his career. We don't really know where he's going to be at, just early season struggles. But let's talk about a veteran point guard that just suffered an injury, and that's Mike Conley. His Achilles has been acting up. He's had leg injuries in the past. The Grizzlies says he's going to be out a minimum of 2 weeks. It's a lingering type of injury, and we know how much Memphis depends on Conley and Gasol. So how much do you think this will impact the Grizz?
Hugely. Absolutely hugely. Before the announcement, he was having some career worst numbers. Career worst field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. He had his least amount of assists, and funnily enough, the team itself had a higher net rating with Conley off the floor. So I think that they can make it work somewhat because their bench has been absolutely outstanding. But I mean, how often can you rely on guys like Dylan Brooks, who's a rookie, Andrew Harrison, and Mario Chalmers? It's going to be hard, and especially with their schedule coming up. They've got the Blazers, they've got the Nuggets, they've got the Spurs twice, they've got the Cavaliers. Then after that is the 2-week mark when he's set to be reevaluated. And if he's still out some more time, then it's the Timberwolves, the Hot Knicks, the Raptors, OKC, and Washington. That is a horrifically tough run. So, and they're just holding on to the 8th spot right now with OKC hot on their heels.
I mean, it's definitely an issue. I mean, I didn't have Memphis being a playoff team this year. I remember, Nick, when we talked. Jack, were you on the Grizzlies podcast too, the preview of this series?
No, I think it was just you and I. I think it was just you.
I wasn't the Grizzlies one, but I remember one of my first articles for OTG was, funnily enough, an off-season sort of preview about the Grizzlies. So I do. Yeah. I have a soft spot for them.
I remember us both saying, Nick, that if Conley or Gasol went down for an injury, that this team was in for a rude awakening, and they're pretty much right on schedule for that.
Yep.
that even though that Mike Conley went down that first game and they played the Pacers, actually, funny enough, right after, and it went down to the wire. Marc Gasol had a ridiculous 71-point FanDuel game against the Pacers, and they still lost. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this is the best they can do without Conley against a team that's mediocre in comparison. So yeah, they're going to be in a rough spot, especially because Conley wasn't even having a good year to start. He wasn't shooting the ball very well. He wasn't very engaged in getting guys involved, whether that's because of the supporting cast or not. So the Grizzlies are definitely in trouble.
Yeah, I think the one silver lining for them is Tyreke Evans is playing really well, and he's somewhat of
Phenomenal.
a playmaker. Yeah, so he's someone who can kind of help that out, but obviously Evans has been inconsistent in his career. Jack mentioned Conley's numbers have been down. Obviously, that's probably related to the injury. But like you said, Kory, on the pod, we said if Conley or Gasol go down for an extended period of time, it could be a huge issue. So a minimum of 2 weeks. We know Achilles injuries are lingering, so this could have a long-term negative effect. If hypothetically we see Memphis go 5 to 10 games under 500, do you think the trades start to open up with a possibility of moving on Marc Gasol?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was literally going to ask after, Nick. Great minds think alike. I mean, if we're thinking about the candidates that could be looking for a guy like Marc Gasol, he's been linked to the Celtics, though what they've got with Al Horford right now, I'm not sure they want to mess with that chemistry. I think they're probably waiting out on Anthony Davis, but a team like the Clippers might want to make a trade. The Cavs will certainly be looking for to bolster their squad, even though Marc Gasol doesn't necessarily fit the age requirement. A player of his quality, he's been a top 5, top 10 center for the past decade or so. So I certainly think it's worth blowing up if that were to happen, because I think I don't know if it was Howard Beck or Zach Lowe or someone saying on a podcast, like, everyone's always saying, we shouldn't blow it up. Let's just one more year. You never say, oh, I can't believe we blew it up only like that. We blew it up way too early. You always say you blew it up way too late. Why couldn't we get an asset out of it? Look at Kevin Durant. Look at Gordon Hayward. You'd rather get something out of it if those guys aren't really going to contribute to your next championship anyway. I get the Grizzlies are like a lower tier market team and want to maintain some relevance, but and it'll be a huge process for them to lose one of their mainstays. But basketball is about those tough decisions. It's a huge business.
Yeah, the Mike Conley injury is something I think we'll cure throughout the year. I don't see, like you said, Nick, an Achilles injury tends to kind of linger throughout the year. And I see him missing more time when he comes back. I see it flaring up at points in the season. And, if this does go south, then trading a guy like Marc Gasol would make sense. I mean, Gasol's he's 32. He's still got 2 more years left on his contract. He'll be making $25 million that final year. He'll be 34. And, the way he's playing this year, any team could use a rebounding defensive-minded center in Marc Gasol. He's learned how to shoot the three decently well. He shares the ball well. With what you said, Jack, a team like the Celtics, I'm not sure how well he fits in, but he could be the center they've been looking for. And then for the Cavs, they could use some interior defense.
Smart basketball player too, very smart. He understands how to play because he's not necessarily the most athletic guy, Marc Gasol, but he's a guy that can still play defense. He knows how to, hit the angles as a playmaker. He's definitely somebody you'd be interested in, and he could definitely be a huge boost to a playoff team with the ability he has.
A sneaky one as well.
3-point shot too.
Yeah, he's got a great, like Kory and you guys mentioned, his 3-point shot, like Brolo, has just come out of nowhere, and it's really consistent. It's a nice shot. He even crossed up Clay for a real highlight play, which is really sweet. Another team I'll throw out there, the Washington Wizards, if they can somehow make something of it. If they could get him, well, they'd elevate themselves back into that top tier with the Celtics, because there's been rumors of Boogie making his way to Washington due to his relationship with John Wall, but if they could somehow get rid of Jan Mahimi and some other contracts to get Marc Gasol on their lineup, they should do everything. Throw their first rounder in there. The Wizards have a finite timeline. John Wall and Bradley Beal still have youth on their side to an extent. Gasol doesn't, but he'd fit in really nicely, I think.
I'm all into that. I like that.
What about a team like Toronto? Toronto actually has some young assets. A lot of the young players on their bench. They've been trying to move Valanciunas. Do you think that could be a possibility?
They could make the move, but I think I don't see it as much because you look at what they're paying Serge Ibaka right now, Kyle Lowry, and DeMar DeRozan. They're going to be looking into some serious luxury tax territory. They've got the assets, like you mentioned, Nick, some really nice young guys, Jakob Poeltl, Norman Powell, those sort of dudes. But I see the Raptors in a tier below that, like almost say if we're talking about rankings, I'd probably go like Celtics, Wizards, other than the Cavs, Celtics, Wizards, Bucks, and then the Raptors. So I don't think he elevates them that much, despite the fact that he is a quality player. And I think the chemistry fit would be a bit of an issue because they're right now playing this really sort of cool pace space passing, a really revolutionized system, which Gasol would fit into nicely. But when it comes playoff time and sort of crunch time, they do tend to revert back to their ISO ways with like DeRozan and Lowry. So it's an interesting one, but I don't think he fits in.
If you can trade Ibaka for Marcus Gasol, do it.
Could.
Does that move the needle that much? Really? Like, how much better is Gasol? I mean, he is a better than Ibaka, but it's not like significant upgrade by any stretch.
Ibaka's trash.
I think Gasol, what he can bring outside. So Ibaka to be effective, he needs to be scoring. He's not the defensive player he once was. Gasol, on the other hand, he's a guy who can have more of an impact off ball, setting picks, setting players up, hitting them on a cut. He's making life easier for DeRozan and Lowry. And Ibaka, on the other hand, is not really doing much of that. Gasol, I mean, it would be, three cots. And like you said, I think the luxury tax would be the biggest issue. So they'd have to get rid of Ibaka or Valanciunas or another ugly contract to make it happen. But moving on to another team, another Western Conference team that is struggling, the Los Angeles Clippers. Started the season pretty hot. Jack wrote an article about it, and Blake Griffin, starting to have a really nice season. Then 8 straight losses for the Clippers. Obviously, they've had injuries. Beverly, Tedosic, and Gallinari have all been out significant time already. Something we mentioned on the preview pod for this team. What are your thoughts on the Clippers losing 8 straight? Are you surprised?
Yes, but I'll put in a but there. Gallinari, Teodosic, Beverly, who I believe is coming back tonight, or if not, came back last night.
I think he's come back tomorrow.
He's come back tomorrow. Sorry, my bad. So injuries hurt always, and we mentioned in our Clippers preview pod on the outlet that if injuries happen to these guys, they already have. Gallinari has already gotten injured. Blake Griffin's been playing great basketball. DeAndre Jordan put up a 20-20 game in that Cavs outing. They just don't have the depth, the quality depth to play 8 to 10 deep. They're not a Boston Celtics by any stretch. Their offense is okay. Their defense is struggling. I think they're about 20th or in that sort of the bottom 10 defensively. They can't really defend one-on-one. They're not, as much as they want to get out in transition, they don't seem to be one of a great transition team either. I think they're relying very heavily on Blake Griffin and DeAndre, and I think that there needs to be another guy there, or at least Gallinari needs to get healthy. I really have not, and I've said this in a few articles on OTG and in podcasts with you guys specifically. I'm really not a fan of Doc Rivers, and I don't understand why he gets the praise that he's been getting. And with a lot of coaches' names being thrown up for being fired, you look at Ty Lue, Jason Kidd. I think Doc Rivers is certainly throwing his hat into the ring up there if they continue the form that they've been going on, because they're a playoff team, like based off quality. They're better than the Grizzlies for me, who are right now 8th. They're on the same level as sort of like a Blazers, probably under the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. So to be so far below 500 and below their, as I mentioned earlier, below their crosstown rivals is an absolute disgrace. And Coach Doc Rivers is absolutely in the hot seat. So much so, I think it's bloody on fire.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think Doc Rivers is now going to be analyzed a lot more heavily by the front office. This has not been the ideal start, especially after how they looked the first couple of games. I kind of thought this team was going to exceed my expectations. Patrick Beverley looked fierce. He's already missed time. It's what we feared, though. We didn't think this team could stay healthy. And, right off the bat, they're not being able to stay healthy. I mean, and yes, Blake Griffin has been able to stay on the court so far. And DeAndre has been up and down. We're seeing the value of having a guy like Chris Paul for DeAndre Jordan. Because offensively at times, DeAndre Jordan has a really tough time getting himself going because he doesn't have the kind of pick-and-roll playmaker in Chris Paul. I can't even say his last name, but he's not in there either. And then Beverly's not in there, of course. So it's a lot of Lou Will being that kind of point guard who we know is more of a shooting guard who gets himself going, who has to now try and get DeAndre going as well. I just think there's a lot of misfit pieces with these injuries.
Yeah, we mentioned, like you guys said, on the preview pod, we talked about it. We talked about how injuries were very likely with this team for, the players they have, like a Gallinari. I don't think he's played a full season in quite some time, if he ever has. So I think the Clippers could be in trouble because, getting injuries early in the season does not help. These are going to linger around, and there's a good chance that somebody else in this team could go down. Similar to the Memphis situation, if the Clippers go under, they fire Doc, could you see a situation where they start to clean house?
Clean house by the fact that I think DeAndre would be gone. I don't think they're going to be wanting to pay him an exorbitant amount of money, and I'm sure his value might have decreased in today's current NBA, but he's sort of like if Andre Drummond could sort of have a resurgent season, a rejuvenated season, then DeAndre can. There's still value for DeAndre on many rosters. I think I remember hearing someone say Tristan Thompson for DeAndre, though I don't see how much that really moves the needle. DeAndre is probably a better defender.
I saw this trade today. Someone put it out there: Amon Shumpert, Tristan Thompson, the Nets pick for Patrick Beverley and DeAndre Jordan.
Interesting. The Nets pick is the one that I think the Clippers would be salivating over. Our Nets aren't horrible, Nick, but everyone's like, oh, the Nets. Exactly. I was literally, I was going to say that, like, it's a lottery pick, and despite the fact that the reform lottery happens next year, not this year, it's still a lottery. It's still not like a guaranteed based off the standings. Like the Cleveland Cavaliers had the number 1 pick 4 years in a row, despite the fact that they weren't the worst team 4 years in a row. So that Nets pick could still be the number 1 pick. So you don't want to give up a number 1 pick, a franchise-altering possible like a Michael Porter or a Luka Doncic or whoever it is, if you don't have to, unless it makes you significantly better, which I don't think Beverly and Jordan does. If you could have gotten, say, if you get maybe a DeMarcus Cousins, which I think is one of the only players out there who really moves the needle that much, and even so, he might be just a rental. So I like the trade. If maybe that pick changes to the Cavaliers' own first rounder rather than the Nets pick, then I think it might be a bit more even.
All right, turn the music down, turn me up. I would salivate over the thought of having DeAndre Jordan playing center with LeBron James, because he is, to a degree, I think everything LeBron hoped that Tristan Thompson could be. A high energy rebounder, alley-ooper, put-down blocker. He's definitely moves around the court a lot faster and non-awkward compared to a guy like Tristan Thompson, who seems just at times to be kind of slow. And then who wouldn't want to have Patrick Beverley on your bench to guard Steph Curry or John Wall or Kyrie Irving? Because at the end of the day, you're all you care about are those teams that you see as a threat in quotation marks. And I think having a guard like Patrick Beverley, as long as he's healthy, he limits all three of those guys to a high degree. And I think that's what you need, because that's one thing the Cavs don't need any more of is offensively talented players. They need some guys who can play some defense.
Yeah, and obviously DeAndre and Beverley, that's their best skill set, is their ability to kind of, Beverley to annoy the shit out of opposing guards and DeAndre to kind of hold down the paint. And DeAndre is a little bit of an enforcer. Tristan Thompson's really not as much like that. He gets tough once in a while, but I could see it working. But like Jack said, I don't know if I'm Cleveland, I don't know if I want to give up that pick. I don't think you can at this point, still not knowing LeBron's future, because that's kind of like your get out of jail free card. Because, LeBron leaves, you end up getting one of this, hypothetically, you land the lottery, you get the number one pick. You now have a star player to build around for the future.
Yeah, my only thing to say to that is, yes, you lose the ability to draft a free agent and start from scratch, but you could still keep DeAndre, Kevin Love, and then you could possibly re-sign Isaiah Thomas in the offseason if you do lose LeBron, and then you're still a top 5 seed in the East if those 3 of those guys stay healthy.
Yeah, you could be, but then also you have to look. I would say if I was a GM, the Cavs could still do that. I would look long term, and I would think in my head, Kevin Love, DeAndre Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, they're necessarily never gonna get me to probably Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm gonna have a ton of money locked up into players that I don't think can get me to a championship.
Yeah, I'd rather blow it up.
So, but enough about the Clippers. We got a game for you guys today. This will be fun. Just let me pull up my list real quick. So we're going to play a little bit of start, bench, and cut. Do you guys know how this game works?
I think we do a little bit of a similar game on JBT DBS. I'm guessing that it's like you got 3 players, you start, you bench, you cut one.
Correct.
Easy.
Good for you, Kory?
Yeah.
All right, we'll start with a hard one. So first list: Kristaps Porzingis, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic.
This isn't too hard for me. This ain't too. I'm starting Joel. I'm benching Kristaps, and I'm dropping Jokic. They're all 3 incredibly different players, but Joel Embiid has the ceiling of a top 3 NBA player in terms of talent. Like, he is generational, like these 2 other guys are. But Jokic, I don't think has. He's a guy you can build a franchise around, but I think he needs extra parts around him that complement his game. Joel Embiid is a straight-out stud. Porzingis is a stud as well. Like, he's somehow lifted the Knicks back into relevancy and made himself the king of New York. But, Joel Embiid's easily the best player out of these 3.
Yeah, mine are going to be exactly like yours. I would go with Embiid on the start, Porzingis the bench, and then cut Jokic. Or Jokic, whatever the hell. I'm so bad with European names. It's not even funny. For me, I just cut Jokic. I mean, first, I think he's extremely ugly and doofy. But
dude, he's a 7-foot Serbian dude, and his brothers apparently have been known to almost charge the court when he gets a bad call against him. So if him or his brothers are listening, then I'm a big fan, Nikola. That was Kory that said that one.
I gotta start locking my doors at night. I like his game, but I agree to the point where I think he needs a lot of complementary pieces around him to truly flourish. Whereas we've seen Porzingis so far this year do it all with nothing. And I mean, Joel Embiid, we saw between 2 years. There's nothing scarier at this point than a healthy Embiid.
Yeah, Embiid definitely. The health is the only concern for him. Moving on to our next list: Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, and James Harden.
This one's a bit tougher. I'm probably dropping the former MVP, based off current form.
There's 2, so
okay. The last year's reigning MVP. So I mean, a lot could be said about Harden could have been MVP last year quite easily, and a lot of people are saying in hindsight that probably should have been the case. Right now, I'm gonna start James Harden just because right now for me he is probably the MVP, with probably LeBron, Giannis, and a few other names that you could chuck in there. I'm gonna bench Curry, just purely because I think he is the Warriors' most important player, and to be the most important player on the best team in the league, there has to be some sort of elevation for that alone. Even Kevin Durant in his GQ article is like, I'm so happy that I have Stephen Curry on this team. I don't want to be the leader. And Russ has struggled not hugely this year. He's been probably one of the more consistent guys out there in OKC, but he's still struggling to get the best out of his teammates. And surprisingly, when chatting to a couple of my pickup mates yesterday, they were surprised at the fact that OKC had such a high-level defense, but their offense was the one that was struggling. They thought that would have been switched. So, like, I think OKC are in a good spot. But Russ, certainly isn't having the astronomical year that he was last year. But obviously, it's a completely different team. But it pains me to say, because probably out of these three, he's my favorite player. So, sorry, Brody, if you're listening, you're my boy.
You're my boy, Blue. Yeah, I'm
Old
starting
school.
James. Yeah, got a little reference. I'm starting James Harden. He's, between him, Antetokounmpo, who's kind of cooled off LeBron. Those are my three right now. They're at the top of the MVP race. Curry off the bench. Besides missing a game with an injury and that comeback game, he's been extremely solid for the Warriors. We know what he does. And then cut would be Russ. Yes, he's playing solid, but I don't think he's playing, as good as he could be to a degree. I think he's kind of trying to get Melo and Paul George, within the offense and comfortable rather than getting himself going more times than not. I mean, we saw that one play against the Bulls where he had like the wide open dunk or layup and he turned around to pass the ball behind him for like the extra assist and people were clowning him. I don't know. I don't see the same type of aggression as I did last year. Yes, he has some better players, and yes, the offense is the issue. But I don't know. Russ to me has been disappointing so far.
Yeah, I think you could make the argument for Curry and Harden that they both are better fits in different systems where Russ kind of needs the ball in his hands and that like super aggressive mentality is when he's at his best, and it's not always possible. But next list, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, and Klay Thompson.
Oh, this is tough.
This is, Nick, you're killing me, mate. You're killing me.
I tried.
I'm going to start. I'm basing this purely off this year's form. I'm going to start Klay Thompson. I'm going to bench Paul George, and I'm going to drop Jimmy Butler. If you guys listened to JBT last week, did you hear him scream going out of that canoe?
Yeah.
He deserves to get cut alone for that. Like, what dude is scared of being in a canoe? Come on, Jimmy. And you got the Taylor Swift treatment as well. So purely off that alone, Jimmy Butler gets cut. Klay Thompson is like him, KD, and Steph are almost having 50, 40, 90 years combined, which is ludicrous. And Klay has it could be argued that Paul George is as good a defender, and Paul George is probably a more dominant force and a guy you'd want to be a 1A, 1B player, whereas Klay works better as your sort of second fiddle sort of dude. And if Klay was on OKC right now, I think they'd be in a much better state. And you put in just because I think he defers a bit better, but I like Klay's consistency and his ability to just do a heap of different things, and he's improved his passing as well. Like he's not only, he hasn't stagnated at all. He's continuing to improve.
Yeah, I'm also cutting Jimmy Butler because when you fall into 2 feet of water and you scream, you pretty much lose all basketball respect. No, I was kidding. He just hasn't been as good. I think Minnesota is still trying to figure out how the hell you share a basketball between Teague, Wiggins, himself, and Towns. So I think they're just trying to figure it out still. For me, I'd start Paul George. Paul George is, besides like 1 or 2 games this year, he's been extremely good for the Thunder. He's been putting up decently big numbers. He's really accepted that role as that off-ball kind of catch and shoot guy. Like he allows Russ to have the ball handling duties when he's on the floor, and Paul just taking that second fiddle role I thought pretty well. He's still a very good defender. And then for me, I'd bench Klay Thompson. There's no disrespect to Klay Thompson, because he's one of those guys where at any night he can drop 60. There's going to be at some point this year where he goes off for 27 to 30 points in a quarter and drops 60 in a game, because in Golden State, any night one of those guys will go off, and he's still going to get you 25 to 20 points every other game anyways. So I would just bench Klay.
Good stuff, guys. We got a couple more. Let's pick up the pace a little bit. You don't have to give long explanations. Just shoot it out, because I got a couple good ones for you. So Andre Drummond, DeAndre Jordan, Hassan Whiteside.
Drop, cut Hassan Whiteside, bench DeAndre Jordan, start Andre Drummond.
Oof. Start Hassan Whiteside, bench Andre Drummond, cut DeAndre Jordan.
Oh, we have a disagreement here. All right, next one. Kyle Lowry, Dame Lillard, and Kyrie Irving.
Start Kyrie Irving, bench Dame Lillard, cut. I forgot who was the other one.
Lowry.
Cut Lowry.
Yeah, Start Kyrie, bench Lillard, and cut Lowry.
All right, Draymond Green, Kevin Love, and LaMarcus Aldridge.
Start Draymond Green. That's without a given. And bench LaMarcus, cut Kevin Love.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm gonna flip it though. I'm gonna say start LaMarcus Aldridge only because he's been a tank, and then bench Draymond, cut Kevin Love.
All right, so a rookie one for you: Jason Tatum, Kyle Kuzma, and Donovan Mitchell.
Ooh.
Start Jason Tatum. Bench Donovan Mitchell, cut Kyle Kuzma, just because I think having a guard, and I don't think Kyle Kuzma has the ceiling to be a best player on a team, whereas I think Mitchell has that potential.
This pains me because I don't want to do this. All right, start Jason Tatum, bench Kyle Kuzma, and cut Donovan Mitchell. But Donovan Mitchell, I love you. You're fantastic. You're just not better than Kyle Kuzma right now.
All right, another rookie one: Josh Jackson, De'Aaron Fox, and Lonzo Ball.
Oh, that's easy.
Start De'Aaron Fox, bench Josh Jackson, drop Lonzo Ball.
Oh, you're crazy. In this scenario, I start Lonzo, I bench De'Aaron Fox, and I cut Josh Jackson.
All right, some big guns: LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, chill.
I've done this one on JBT, and it was almost impossible and unheard of to actually say any of these guys and cut in the same sentence. Cut Kevin Durant. No. Cut Kawhi, bench KD, start LeBron.
Yeah, I'm going with the same one. And the only reason I think Kawhi gets cut is because he's hurt. I'm hoping.
Yeah, if Kawhi was playing right now, it'd be a lot better. But
it'd be so hard.
But I hope this is the hardest one. This is to start your franchise with. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kristaps Porzingis, Karl-Anthony Towns.
Start Giannis. I think that's without a given. He is, like with Joel Embiid, the best talent, best potential, is already one of the best players in the game, has somehow elevated himself into top 5. I'm gonna bench. This is really hard. Yeah. I'm not sure about Kristaps and Cat. Kristaps has him for defense. Towns probably has him for offense. I'm gonna bench. I don't know. I'm going with the Latvian. I'm going to bench Kristaps and I'm going to drop Towns. I've never said that in my life, but I've done it now, and I feel dirty.
Right, so I'm gonna
feel dirty.
I'm gonna drop Antetokounmpo, and no, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna start Antetokounmpo, and then I hate that I have to agree. I'm gonna bench Porzingis and then drop Cat only because Cat looks literally like a cat in a tree, like a lost cat in a tree on defense.
True.
Yeah. So that is our start, bench, and cut. You guys have any that you want to throw out before we get out of here today?
Oh, okay. I got a fun one. It's like a most improved. Victor Oladipo, Tyreek Evans, Tim Hardaway Jr.
Victor Oladipo start. Tyreek Evans cut. Tim Hardaway Jr. bench.
I'd probably do the same thing, because I think Tyreek Evans just in the past has proven that he's inconsistent. The other two guys are young, and I'm hoping that they're going to consistently get better. Jack, you got any for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go to our DBS for this week on JBT, so use your boys' input. Robert Covington, Jaylen Brown, and Andrew Wiggins.
Wait, say that one more time, Jack. Sorry.
Robert Covington of the Sixers, Jaylen Brown of the Celtics, and Wiggins. Get wiggy with it.
That is tough.
I start Jaylen, I bench Covington, and I cut Wiggins.
Oh, he's just got a max contract as well. Max contract guy being cut, and Covington just got his.
He's been lackluster on offense these past couple of games, and he doesn't play much defense. So the other two guys got him beat.
And Covington, I like Jaylen Brown. Obviously, his last two games have been a fire, and he's so young. And I don't know, he just has like something about him that you already know he's going to be good. As much as I know he should be a Nets player, But Robert Covington, on the other hand, too, is like, we already knew he was pretty good and he was putting up decent numbers for the Sixers the last few seasons. But then all of a sudden they get good players and his play just like jumps so much. So you think maybe part of the problem for him the last few years was just the talent surrounding him. Wiggins, on the other hand, he gets good players and then his game drops. So I think Wiggins definitely has some issues. Not to say I don't think any of them will be good, but I'm agreeing with Jack. Jaylen Brown, Covington, cut Wiggins.
Fair enough. That's a hard one. I'll make sure to note that and let my boy Nick know when we're doing our DBS this week.
All right, guys, that wraps up for today. As always, thank you, everybody, for listening. Kory, Jack, thank you for hopping on. And you can listen to the NBA Outlet on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, OTGBasketball.com.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Ciao, ciao.